for you, and I thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, before we start, thank you all very much again for sharing the morning tea and the wonderful morning tea we're always provided, and how it's shared amongst our cafes and eating places. I think we're very, very lucky, so we just need to note that. Councillors, we'll go back to our hard copy. Page 45, it's item GOV 1/19. It's your monthly operational report, December 2018 to January. Can I move in a second, please, to deal with this item? You're right, Councillor Peters. Councillor Bronwyn Petrie. Seconded by Councillor Michael Petrie. Thank you. And I'll hand over to order. Order, please. And I'll hand over to our acting Chief Executive, Mr. Andre Kuplar.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, councillors, with the monthly operational report, as I've indicated a little bit earlier, there's not a lot of changes in the actual tabulation, but certainly there are significant changes to progress on the back section with emerging risks. So I commend the report to you and happy to take questions.
Questions to acting CE. Councillor Rogan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Andre. I've got 3 or 4 questions, Andre, if that's all right.
Councillor, are they to do with different parts of the operational plan?
Yes.
In fairness, I'll take a couple, okay, and then we'll come back to you. Is that all right?
Yep.
Just to be fair to other councillors.
All right. Page 77.
Yep.
Under the environmental management report.
Yep.
Recently, I was involved in a bit of a walk around the main street to the businesses on another matter, and people mentioned to me numerous times, and numerous shop owners, about issues with parking, and they're very concerned about the fact that some business people park in the main street all day. And I know that there's been an improvement in the issue of parking fines and that sort of stuff, but I think the problem is such that it really needs to be addressed specifically.
Yep.
There are people who do park there all day, and I've observed that, and I'm sure other councillors here have.
Councillor, I apologise. Which page on the monthly on the operational? 77. Yeah, thank you.
It's regular patrols, ranger presence, marking at tyres has decreased complaints in relation to parking, and I'm guessing that people aren't directly complaining to council, but they will when someone goes and sees them. And there is people who do park inappropriately in the main street, and I can't use names and be specific, but there's one business in particular that does it every day and does it to flaunt it, I think. So I just think it should be addressed.
Do you want to comment, Councillor? No. We're in an open meeting, Councillor. Take on notes, thank you. Councillor, you allow another one?
Yeah, page 175, to do with drinking water. There's a note here that the water management system will be reviewed, or is under review, with priority improvements in the coming months on the quality and that sort of stuff. So I'm just wondering, is there an issue we need to know about with the quality of water at the moment as far as drinking goes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I don't believe that there is an issue at this point in time. I have mentioned a little bit earlier on that certainly as the dam level, and this has been previously reported in the paper in any case, that as the dam level reduces down, right, the level of dilution of the inflowing bore water from Shirley Park, right, the amount of dilution effectively decreases. So there will come a point though where we cannot use that backup bore, right, to effectively supplement our supply out of Tenterfield Dam. So look, I don't believe that there is any issues. For the water that goes through our water treatment plant, we're regularly testing that to confirm that it complies with Australian drinking water standards. And I have not been advised as yet that we have got issues in that space. In terms of reviewing our plans, that's just part and parcel of what one does in terms of you're reviewing your strategic plans. We've had some help from some funding from the state government to update our drinking water management plan. And there's been, I suppose, a number of iterations of consultants coming to us and providing, advice and suggestions on how that might best be updated. So, look, I wouldn't take any concern or read in any concern because we're updating certain plans. That's just part and parcel of normal business.
Thank you, Councillor Rogan, and as indicated, we'll come back to you with your other questions. Other questions to do with the monthly report to Andre, councillors or any other staff member. Councillor Varian, I'll go to you, then Councillor McNish.
Page 140, under capital expenses, fourth dot point. Oh, geez, I wish those bloody glasses would work. One's driving, one's bifocal, and one's extensive payment works occurred to council reserve for the purpose and designed to achieve, and it says about the areas of significant environmental, and we have facilitated scope works, just excuse my bloody reading, meets the needs and environmental consideration. I just want the area of significant environmental is up there, because if it's near the bridge there, all that area is totally surface mined, all the soil was stripped along it, and a lot of that area up there was meets the same criteria.
Councillor, just for clarity, so we're all on the same page. So page 40. Under
40.
Yeah, page 40 on under which heading? Capital projects, operational expenses?
No, capital expenses.
Capital expenses.
Fourth dot point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. In terms of the environmental significance there, Councillor, part of what we do now with any major works is that we're obliged to do what's called a review of an impact, basically an environmental impact assessment, right? An EIA, or what's otherwise known as a review of environmental factors, an REF. What we will do is first of all look at the desktop, habitat known issues, and apparently up that way frogs keep coming up. So we've got to be mindful of sort of what mitigations and processes we have to, I suppose, incorporate into our construction techniques to allow for that sort of thing. But that's the area of significance environmentally. I'm pretty sure it relates to some of the fauna, not so much the flora, from what I was last advised. So, but I wouldn't read too much into that. That's just part of what we do. We do environmental assessments, and so that's really code for that.
Yeah, no, I was just curious about that, because, like I said, it's all been mined very heavily, surface mined. All the soil was stripped away, and what's there is just regrown from whatever's blown in. And along the side of the road, virtually everything's bloody dead anyway from the drought.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Andre, for your reply. Councillor McNish, you've indicated?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Microphone, Councillor, please.
Oh, shall where are we here?
Yeah, take your time.
Page 105. If I can just find it.
Yep.
105. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Has the property Bendels being leased at this stage? It says advertised to lease council land and properties.
Thank you, Councillor Tomei. Did you want to reply? Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not as yet. So we're still in the process of looking at that.
With due respect, it's taking an awful long time. What is there a reason it takes so long?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of a particular reason, but I could have a look at that and get back to you.
Because I think we're looking at about 9 months now, and it's a long time. Page 96. 96. About untidy, unhealthy premises. Council officers are still working with property owners regarding untidy, unhealthy premises who have previously received written notification. Now, we all know the places that we are referring to, and one in particular is getting worse and worse. They're now using the ground as a rubbish dump. There's rubbish strewn all over the place in between all the old cars and, that sort of thing. Now, to me, that house should be condemned. Now, previous directors have, we've got to go through the process, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And I just wonder, because I remember back to Charlie Webster's time, which is when I was a kid, that it was easy to condemn a place. Now, these places are obviously, to me, they're not habitable. And yet, people still live in that place and in appalling conditions. That's just one. There are several others in town as well. And I don't know if council can come down hard on those sort of places, or you have to go through the process, or is that just an excuse?
Did you want it to wait? Thank you, councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there is a process, as with everything when council's dealing with these sorts of matters. So regulatory processes and legislative processes that we must follow in order to deal with these. So our rangers are dealing with these issues. They're not easy issues to deal with, but they are ongoing.
Yeah, thanks, mate. There's a case, there's an old block of flats, Bulwer Street, I think it is. And way back in, I think it was John Rebelco's time, that there was a show cause why it should not be demolished. We're going to read, and nothing has happened in the last 10 years. And that place is just sitting there. I imagine it's full of white ants and rats and all sorts of things. Now, that should have been followed up on. I just wonder if these things just fall off the table and nothing ever happens when people stop complaining about it, and then it just goes off the radar. And there are other buildings like that as well.
Yep.
To me.
Councillor, with the experience, and please respect what I'm going to say, Councillor McNish, that you bring to this council, and it is there. You know that there is a process, and no way am I disrespectful or anything. You've raised some really good concerns, which are poignant, and there is a process for if you're of the opinion that they might have. And yes, totally, we deal with things, all the time that were there once, and all of a sudden the focus has shifted for whatever reason. There's a process to bring them back and ask the appropriate officer, could they pursue that and see where it's at. So I commend you on bringing them forward, which is you're quite entitled to as a councillor, and I'm sure that they're noted here today, and that those officers will be following that up.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Of course, you remember when you were first on, there were no resolution registers, and things just fell off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
The other one is page 117, if I may.
Yep.
Somewhere here. I just do with the parks and gardens. Now, looking at those things there, now our outdoor staff. Now, there's no lawn to be mowed. There's no whippersnipping to be done. Why aren't the workers fixing up these things now? One here is seats not clean for weeks. Now, I get a bit of Dettol and I'll have that clean in 5 minutes. I just wonder if some guy says, it's not my job, I won't do it. So maybe there needs to be a bit of a push to make some of the staff do these sorts of, to me, fairly simple maintenance jobs. Just on gardens, can I just find out from Tomei, how's the new gardener going?
Through you, Mr Mayor, you mean our horticulturist?
Yes.
Yes, I understand he's doing some great work.
Good.
Reports back through his manager.
Oh, good, okay. So he's still here, obviously. So
Yes, he is.
And I can share with you, councillor, he's starting to wear a hat, which is good. He worried me for a while.
That's good because, I mean, obviously you can't do much with lack of water and all that sort of stuff. Yep. Thanks, Mr Mayor, that's all.
Thank you, councillor. Any other questions to the monthly report? I'll take Councillor Bronwyn Petrie. Councillor, have you got more than one?
Yes.
Because I've been fair to Councillor Rogan. How many have you got?
I have got 4.
Okay.
So
Councillor.
I can have 2 and Bob
Yes.
can have his my next.
Councillor, I'll chair the meeting and I'll do it that way. So. I will
Not
take
wanting
2,
to
councillor.
put, not
No,
wanting
it's
to
all
put
good.
words in your mouth.
Councillor.
Look, first of all, just congratulations to staff on continuing strong performance on workforce safety, which is page 50 if you want relevance. But now my question is, page 87, the weigh scales at the sale yard. I understand the load cell's being replaced today, maybe. Maybe Mr Mayor, if you could, being on sales committee, etc., give us an update on that. And my second one was blackberries, page 81. It listed some there, but the rail corridor is one of the worst places we have. And I'm just wondering, I know our weeds officer can issue, a notice to get rid of the weeds of significance to landowners. Has a notice been issued to the rail corridor, John Hollins, who I believe gave it all a tick and saying how wonderful it was a few months ago when it's full of some of the worst incursions of blackberries and et cetera that we've got in the Shire. So way scales and blackberries, first one.
Honourable, did you want to, on the first question to do with the scales?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, with regards to the weigh scales, yes, there has been some work done in that space, and the extent to which that impacts operations and the like, that will be discussed, dare I say, at another forum, like the Sale Yards Committee, and but there's activity still happening. There's still sales work still happening out at the sale yard, so that's good. With regards to the blackberries, I would refer that to May.
Thank you, Andre.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware that any notices have been issued, but I can take that on notice and investigate that.
Councillor, to be supportive of your second question, fully support it and endorse it. It's something that we've been dealing with for a long time. There has been a lot of work with the mention of the group who does maintain and service the rail corridor out around Jennings in the last 12 months, 2 years, which has been outstanding, do a drainage and that. So they are there, and I'm not defending them, but we as a council and with the rail corridor, we're all got different opinions on, but basically similar. It is something that concerns me all the time, and if someone's supposed to be maintaining it to the weeds and that, well, that question needs to be asked. So I'm fully supportive of taking that forward. Okay. So as to Councillor, any other councillor before I go back to Councillor Rogan? Councillor Verry, question?
I've had one question already, Mr. Minister.
Right. Councillor Rogan, I'll go back to you and thank you for waiting there on the sideline for another two questions you've indicated.
I think one of them's been answered.
Okay.
So there's really only a short one, Mr. Mayor, page 33.
33, Councillor?
Yeah. To do with the recovery project.
Yep.
I understand it's a community-based sort of project, but it says here in that bottom paragraph on the bottom right-hand block that Sandwalk to provide a report on the way forward. I was just wondering what is the way forward, and has there been any report yet?
What I'll do, Councillor, because then I'll commend Councillor Sawyer with his involvement with this group, and he might be able to enlighten you a bit there. Thank you, Councillor Sawyer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Update, Councillor Rogan. I advise you never to miss a meeting, mate. I didn't attend the meeting at the golf club on the 14th of February, 14th of February, and now I'm the chairman of the Tenterfield National Monument project.
I commend you on that, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They probably found out you were unavailable before they tapped me on the shoulder. But anyway.
Where's the mop? You're right.
Yeah, so the situation is basically that council, as we're all aware, did submit a grant application very hurriedly to try and get the funding to get this project started. We were unsuccessful, and it was referred to reapply again in stage 2. Robert Perry, to his credit, wasn't prepared to sit back and wait for round 2, so he did a public presentation at the golf club, and I believe there was about 80 people.
Yeah, very well attended, Councillor.
And I watched the video at 11 o'clock that night and found out that I had another job. But anyway, I'm more than happy to do it. The progress now is that it's going to be formed as a community-based organisation along the model of Tenterfield Care Centre. So the community of Tenterfield Shire Council will own this project.
Yep.
There'll be a limited company formed for the vehicle to fundraise and get donations from grant funding, from donations from corporates. That the whole project that Robert Perry outlined for council here previously is still the project. So they're looking to restore facades and awnings and lacework on the verandas and whatever. But we all know that was in the vicinity of 4 to 6 million.
Correct.
So it's not going to be a chicken feed project. So at the moment, we're in the process of forming a steering committee with representatives drawn from various interest groups. That committee will then have the job of building a constitution in consultation with Kerry Swain, articles of association, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And then that committee will proceed with the process of getting a permanent board in place. Now, whether those individuals that are on the steering committee wish to make themselves available for consideration for board positions, that's up to them. But the people on the steering committee at the moment are handpicked because of the area of interest that they represent, and they'll pull together this whole project and then go out to public meetings again, and then we will have a board in place, hopefully within a few months. But that's where we're at the moment.
Clears it up, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sawyer, and publicly here at the meeting, I do offer my sincere support in any way or form that I can in the mayoral position. And I was an apology for that meeting. I fully intend to get there, but I was stuck somewhere. I can't remember. Yeah, but you got a job. It's all good. Thank you, Councillor Sawyer, and I do wish you well and our full support. Councillor Verry, did you have a question? Then I'll go to Councillor Bronwyn-Petrie.
Yeah, on the Green Sestrum, what's your title, Andre? CEO. Acting
CE.
CE. The Green Sestrum at Urbanville, do you know if that was sprayed? And along the Mount Lindsay Road, there's a big patch of blackberry and private land. I've had a complaint about that. So I think we've got to look at this private land stuff as well.
Yep. I can, if it's appropriate, I can talk about the Urbanville issue, and that has been, and the landowner is very appreciative of the work council done to that officer.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice, and I'll get the details of the property for the blackberries on Mount Lindsay.
Thank you. Councillor Bronwyn-Petrie, you've indicated you had another two questions to do with the monthly report.
Yes, page 116 with the parks and gardens, and there's some broken items there, including a climbing apparatus that says broken and dangerous. I'm just wondering if the and dangerous has been fixed, so we don't have children getting hurt with all those broken pieces of crossbars there.
Yep.
And is there an increase? Are these breakages due to vandalism or just wear and tear? And I also see there's an increase in abandoned vehicles on page 80. So that was just a general question about vandalism and the condition of some of our equipment and the abandoned vehicles. And the second question was on page 11, the health services, particularly patient transport options. Have we made any further progress on that one? That's page 11. So page 116, page 11.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand some of the equipment has suffered a bit of wear and tear and vandalism, but we'll certainly look at that, the one where it's mentioned as dangerous, and look at that straight away.
With the vehicles, do you want to handle that one, Tamai? The abandoned vehicles, you mean, Councillor?
An increase in the abandoned vehicles. So I just thought if it was a trend happening or if it's just coincidental, that was all.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's probably just coincidental.
Yep.
The abandoned vehicles tend to be from owners from out of town. They're not local.
Last paragraph, page 11, where it says health services, in particular, patient transport hospital options are the most discussed topic at cross-border meetings, and says issue wasn't resolved but was passed to cross-border commissioner to further address.
Councillor, then do you want to comment? Because I haven't raised that again with James McTavish, our cross-border commissioner, but happy to take that on notice and get straight onto that. We do have a great relationship with James because there's a couple other things which I'm jumping all over the place, but talking to our cross-border commissioner, he needs to be heavily involved with the brief after this fire also, because of that, what happened out there at Wallangarra. So, because there's issues that have raised about that with communication, which I thought was fixed, but it's not, between things. But so I do have a couple of things to speak to him about.
Right, when are we next having a health meeting, like committee?
Meet every 2 months. Is that what you mean?
Have you got one coming up shortly?
Had one just recently. I'd have to check, but it'd be April.
Oh, okay. And that's I happened to be at the hospital the other night, and I was told that the hospital has no facilities to take blood.
All right.
I mean, fair dinkum.
To take blood from a patient?
Yeah, from me.
Oh, okay. Righto.
I mean,
Councillor Forbes.
Page 121, I just like to clarify those two graphs.
Councillor, can you please switch your mic on? Sorry, you're right. So I
Page
apologise, Councillor. Can we start again? What page?
Page 121.
Yep.
I just like to have that, those two graphs there clarified, please, if you don't mind. You got down the.
To do with the swimming complex,
Yeah,
councillor?
Yeah, it's just got, you got the year-to-date budget and then the actuals, and so I just find it a little bit confusing to read that at the moment.
The acting CEO will take that on.
Okay, three, Mr Mayor. Look, the one's income, one's expenditure. Now, I mean, my reading, if I just look at the expenditure one on the right-hand side there, right, you've got a budget in the green, which is basically a projection, right, is what staff believe is their, expected expenditure at a cumulative level. And, as you'd expect, if you go and look at 12 months, okay, it mightn't be exactly linear like it's shown there, but for the purposes of this exercise here, it's shown as just steadily increasing, right? So over time, you spend a bit more 1 month, then it adds to the cumulative. So that's that. You can see where the actual expenditure year to date on the actuals, that's in the red. So it's tracking up to the month of January. It's just underneath, and then it flattens out because we haven't got any further expenditure. So just with each month, it will lift a bit, and I suppose the same sort of principle applies with income. For some reason, it's sort of suggesting that there's been no operational income there. Don't know the reasons why that graph is showing that, but
Because of the new contract.
yeah, right.
That's right.
Okay.
No
No.
income coming in because they're getting it all.
That's right. And that's
Gone down because they're paying for some of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
that's under the new contract. And I think that is mentioned in something I've read here in this report.
Yeah.
Councillor, you happy with that response?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, councillors, any more questions to do with the monthly report? All good? Councillor, I need to note and how lucky we are with the information we are provided in this. I commend you all on the thorough reading that you do of this. That means it's very worthwhile, and to each department that puts their reports in, I thank them and the staff for putting so much work into it, because we are very well informed. So I do commend you. Okay. All happy to receive and note the monthly operational report, councillors? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, move on to page 46. Item GOV 2/19, National General Assembly of Local Government 219. The officer's recommendations there. Can I have a move and a seconder, please? Councillor Sawyer, second by Councillor Peters. Any questions, councillors? All happy to endorse? I'm sorry, I apologise, Councillor Petrie. Yes.
Not so much to do with this, but it just so happens that the next National Timber Council Association general meeting is on the Monday night, of which Councillor Michael Petrie and myself are the representatives.
Yep.
So to the next meeting, I might have to bring forward whether we attend that, not to go to this with this registration, to actually attend the Local Government Association at $1,000 each, etc. But for that Monday, but it's just for information.
So it's on the without.
It's on the
looking at
Monday, the evening of the Monday the 17th
Oh, okay.
in Canberra. It's
Okay.
as an adjunct, so it's not in competition with the daytime
Yep.
agenda of
Yep.
your conference, but it is that evening. So I'll just foreshadow that we will have to discuss that. at
Okay.
Probably the next.
No, very good point.
Thank you.
Be good to attend that while we're down there anyway. Like, I mean, I know for myself.
Yeah.
With the timber conference, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a general meeting of
Yep.
the timber councils. Yep.
Okay, councillors, all happy to endorse? In favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Bear with me. Councillors, we jump ahead to page 58, correct me if I'm wrong, in your hard copy. Item GOV 3/19. It's Tenterfield Shire Council Audit and Risk Committee updates. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please? Councillor Gary Very, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Mike Petrie, thank you. And I'll hand over to a Chief Corporate Officer. No? Erica? Thank you, Erica, for attending again. And hand over to you to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, the report in front of you is two updates regarding Council's Audit and Risk Committee. The first update is regarding the biannual review of the committee charter. So the committee charter was circulated around our committee. It was requiring an update in terms of titles and positions that were under Council's previous organisational structure. And so the changes are in red text in the attachment. There is an within the charter itself that was recommended or suggested by any of the committee members. And so it is provided to Council for your approval and referral back to the committee for ongoing operation for another 2 years, or until re-empanelling. The second update is regarding the appointment of a new committee chair. So Council's committee chair, Peter Cheval, has actually resigned and recommended that another chair be nominated because he is going to be spending most of each year living outside Australia. He is still coming back for business, but he recommended that in light of his not being available in country all the time, that another chair be appointed, and that was circulated by Peter to the other external independent committee members.
That's correct.
And they agreed that Mr Jeff King be appointed. So that is the recommendations that sit in the report for your consideration.
Thank you, Erica. Any questions directed to do with this, councillors? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bronwyn. Apologise.
Thank you. Erica, on page 68 of our council papers, where it talks about the estimated decreased surplus of 40,000 to 382, and reflects the reduction in the swimming pool income, which we know goes to the contractor, and a review of RFS budget. Detail the RFS budgets.
Councillor, I apologise. Which page are we dealing with here?
On page.
So it's in our agenda,
Yes.
in the hard copy?
So excuse me, councillor,
I'm
that's
on
the
the
next
wrong one.
report.
Oh, there you go. I've turned too many pages. Ignore me then.
You're good? Right, settle down. Okay. Any other questions, Eric, to do with this report? No? Okay, councillors, the officer's recommendations there to adopt and update the Risk Committee Charter and appoint a new chairperson, being Mr Jeff King. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Erica. Welcome, Paul. Okay, councillors, we move on to page 67 in your hard copy. It's item GOV 4/19, it's a quarterly budget review statement for December 2018. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please? Councillor Very, I thank you, and seconded by Councillor Bronwyn Petrie, and I thank you. And I'll hand over to our Manager of Finance, Mr Paul Deller, to present this report. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this report updates the budget to the end of December. There's relatively minor or relatively few changes to this report. There will be some significant changes in the next quarterly budget review because of all the additional income that we received from grants, for all the various grants that came through in January and February. But this is at the 31st of December, so there's only relatively few changes. As you can see, the net operating surplus originally was expected to be 5.277 million, based on total operating revenue of 26.217 million and expenditure of 20.939 million. Then we had some changes in the September quarterly review that resulted in a reduction to the bottom line projected net operating surplus down to 3.905 million. And then this December quarterly review, the net operating result after excluding capital income shows an estimated decrease surplus of 40k to $382,000. And this is mainly due to, as was mentioned just then, the reduction in swimming pool income, which now goes to the contractor, and a review of the RFS budgets. So just with the RFS budgets, each year the RFS provide us with some information on likely budget that they need for various either capital works or other works. Most of that is reimbursed to council by the RFS, but there are some things that council does pay for on behalf of the RMS that are non-reimbursable costs. A little bit of stationery and things like that come to mind. But the RFS budget just needed a bit of a review and jigging, so we fixed that in conjunction with the RFS people in the last quarter. Ratio, main ratio, the operating performance ratio still remains stable and strong. And with the influx of all the grant money that's been given to us in the last couple of months, that will only increase. Our cash position, it remains strong too at the moment. I've mentioned in there that we've been able to unrestrict $651,000 in the developer contributions. That represents projects that were completed, but which the cash had not been unrestricted in prior years. We had a review of that done by our consultant, Igor Ivanikov, and that change reflects that. I had hoped to be able to unrestrict another $703,000, I think I mentioned to you previously, regarding the Lehman Brothers investments, but unfortunately there's been another appeal in the United States on that matter, so I just had to leave that restricted at the moment. The capital review, so basically the other major change in this report is I've increased the budget to reflect the true revenue that's likely to come in this year for the NDAA money, and also reflected an update to the Mount Lindesay Road income to match the expenditure year to date there. There's nothing else really of major note, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Councillors, any questions to our Finance Manager to do with this report? Councillor Brian Petrie, and I'll go to you, Councillor Rogan.
Thanks, Paul, for answering part of that. Is that the emergency services line on page 72? Is it that the RFS comes under, or where do I actually?
Through the chair, yes.
Yep, and we're very echoey. You said some of it gets reimbursed. How much of that do you reckon would be reimbursed?
Through the chair, I can get the exact detail for you if you like.
But if it's only stationery that isn't, so it would be the bulk.
The bulk of it is reimbursed to us. Yeah, the bulk of the costs are reimbursed to us through the RFS.
And do we contribute to fire trial management?
We contribute to the we make a contribution to the we make a contribution to the fire RFS fund. That's a set percentage set by the government about what we have to contribute. So that's obviously not reimbursable. So that's a cost that we contribute to help fund the RFS, and all councils do throughout the state.
Thank you.
Not time to do that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bob Rogan, you've indicated.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, through you, Paul. Just page 69, the bit about unrestricted cash and the Lehman Brothers issue. Is that, you're not in a position to unrestrict that 703, is that because of pending legal action still?
Through you, Mr Mayor, again, yes. So there was legal action that was taken.
So legal costs?
Well, it's not so much legal costs. It's the amount of the investments that were that we were able to claim money back for, going back a number of years ago, obviously. But then Lehman Brothers appealed that decision and wanted to try and reclaim the money that had been redeemed by councils. They lost their appeal last April, I believe. Took many years. Thought that was going to be the end of it, but since then I've heard that they've lodged a further appeal to try and appeal that. So just don't know where it's going to end up at the moment, Councillor.
Thank you, Paul. Any other questions to do with the report? Councillor Michael Petrie.
Paul, through that Lehman Brothers, didn't we get paid out for that? Didn't the council get all their money back out of that?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor, yes, we did get money back, but as I mentioned, Lehman Brothers are feeling whether we should have got that money. And that's the nature of the court case as to whether we should have, whether us and other councils should have received that money back or not. We've got it now, and that's why it's in reserve at the moment.
That's it there, councillor. That's 703. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. And obviously it's sitting there in case it goes pear-shaped. So whatever, but I'm always thinking positive that once it gets tidied up, we'll be back in our operation. But good question, councillor. Any other questions to Paul to do with the report, councillors? No. Councillors, the report's there to adopt. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Move on to page 80, councillors. We're doing with item GOV 5/19, Finance and Accounts, period 31st December 2018. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please? Councillor Very, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Rogan, I thank you. And once again, I hand over to Mr. Paul Dell to present this report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, again. Yes, there's actually two reports this month on finance and accounts. One's for the December period and one's for the January period. It's just a requirement under the Act that we do it like that. So at the end of December, you can see that our general fund, our general consolidated cash was $3.450 million. Our trust account was $321,000. I've also included in this report details on the concealed water leakage concession policy and the concessions that were granted during December, as was requested. Also attached is a list of the investments as at the 31st of December 2018.
Councillors, can I ask, can we deal with the December and January together? So GO5/19 and GO6/19, you happy to do that? A similar item. Any questions for our finance manager to deal with these, councillors? No? Councillor Very, you have a question?
Just about the excess water usage. One of them seems extremely high. Was that an industrial one or a private one? Do you know, Paul?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor. No, they're all private. None of these are industrial.
Thank you, Paul. More questions, councillors? Reports are there, councillors. Remember that we're doing from page 80 for December, then January, and page 84. All happy to receive a note? Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, move on to page 88. Item GOV 7/19. Capital expenditure report is the 31st of January. Can I have a move and a seconder here, please? Councillor Mike Petrie, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Varian, thank you. Once again, I hand over to our Manager of Finance, Mr. Paul Della.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. The report's in front of you for any questions or comments. Noticed from earlier in the meeting that there's going to be another movement of $40,000 for Waters Dispensing Station at Urbanville from the Tenterfield Mains replacement funding, and that'll be reflected in the next quarterly budget review as well.
Questions to our Finance Manager? You indicating, Councillor? Councillor Bronwyn?
Thanks, Paul. So just as we get those additional grants, like the new Timber Bridge one, that'll show up in the next report because it was a February grant, etc.
Yes. Through the chair, yes.
Yeah. And the other thing, which is more to yourself or Andre, with the dam wall, now that that's finished and they've done that excellent job there, is it possible that we could have a dam wall open day, like so people can actually see where that is? Because I know a lot of people, having seen it going up for the fishing day, commented on it.
Yep.
And I thought it would be good for the
Order, please, Councillor. You've got a councillor speaking.
It'd be good for residents and ratepayers to actually see where that money did go and what a great thing.
Nolene will comment on that. Councillor Bronwyn, thank you. Yeah, put your mic.
Oh, well, better. I had a conversation with the CE before he went on leave because we had talked about having some sort of event to open it. We were sort of thinking because it's so dry at the moment is probably not a good time. So I was going to organise for a day for councillors to go and have a look at it. But I mean, it's open. We could still do an open day.
It's something probably we should, but a couple of
and
good
invite
points
people to come and
Yep. No, good point. So we'll work with that, councillor, and keep everyone informed. Okay, councillors, no more questions to our finance manager to do with this report. Reports there, councillors, all happy to receive a note? Against? Carried. Move on to page 90, councillors. Item GOV 8/19, reports of loans and balances. Moving a second here too, please. Councillor Sawyer, thank you. Seconded Councillor Rogan, and I thank you. Once again, I hand over to our Finance Manager. Paul.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So note that the loan balance as at the 31st of December was 7.304 million compared to 7.503 million as at the 30th of September. That reflects our repayments of some of the principal on the loans. The other important thing to note from this report is that Council has now received a response to its request to access T-Corp borrowings, and we've been invited to demonstrate how we'll meet the benchmarks associated with the reassessment process. That reassessment process stems back from the Fits of the Future days. So we're liaising with the Office of Local Government to determine what the requirements of that process are before we commit to further action. So just waiting on a response back from the Office of Local Government at the moment.
Yep. And Paul, thanks for the work that's been done there, fully supported by Council. And just to remind everyone, to do with the T-Corp, it is that it had much, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr Dell, it's much better interest rates than what we normally get. And that's why we're pursuing this, and we should be there. So it's something that I hope gets resolved very, very soon. Councillor McNish.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Paul, if we do get the T-Corp, can we refinance these loans? I know one there's 9.2, another one at 802, 781, etc.
Through Mr Mayor, and thanks, Councillor, for that question. No, the terms of T-Corp borrowings are there for new projects, not to refinance existing loans. Having said that, I think I have mentioned previously here that I had looked into whether we could possibly refinance some of these loans, given there are lower interest rates even at commercial institutions at the moment, and the reality is that because of the rate costs, it's not really economic to do so. However, I will have another look at that again, just to see if anything's changed in the last few months, but it's unlikely, I think, but I will have another look at that to see whether there is any option there.
Thanks for your question, Councillor McNish, and your response, Paul. Any other questions to our Finance Manager? Councillors, the reports there. All happy to be supportive of the office recommendation? Favour? Against? Carried? Thank you. Councillors, that's the end of our open council reports from community, economy, environment and governance. Now we move on to our reports from delegates and committees. We're on page 93 in your hard copy. It's item RC1/19. It's the report from Councillor Murray, Councillor Sawyer and Councillor Forbes to do with the conference they attended at Murray-Darling. Councillor Sawyer, being the author, would you like to move, one of the authors, I apologise, would you like to move this report?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Second, Councillor Forbes, thank you. Councillor Sawyer, would you like to present the report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't read it out. I think everybody's had fair opportunity, so I'll just give you a quick summary. We were there for the 3 days as representatives from the executive. A fair example of that was the evening dinner on the Friday night, I think it was got delegates from the various buses so that everybody didn't have to worry about drinking and driving, etc. And there was no bus. Hurried to the buses, and she was so busy doing everything else because she doesn't have a PA that there was no buses. But that didn't dull the night. It was a good event. There was a lot achieved, and the networking that Don and I were able to affect going to be worthy in the long term. The key point, as I touched on earlier, is that because it is on that shoestring budget, a resolution was passed that all members of the regional executive, that was the people that were attending that meeting, would submit a motion at their respective council's next meeting. So that's for us, this meeting, to write to that resolution is to write to their own state governments, because there's obviously representatives from Victoria and South Australia and some from Queensland, and also to the federal government supporting the Murray-Darling Association's application for government funding. So I would move that we do proceed as part of this report with sending off those supporting letters, and I'm assuming Don will second in that. Because if we don't make the Murray-Darling truly the peak body of this whole issue, the whole issue will get lost and swamped by all the other people that want to ride off the back of the problem, because everybody's putting their hand in to try and get handouts out of it and be the relevant point. Well, this is the only truly local government body representing the interests of the Murray-Darling, so much so, as the report says, that because of the confusion between the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, which is government run, and copped an absolute shellacking in the Royal Commission report, one delegate actually has foreshadowed that they will be moving at the annual conference to change the name to something else, Darling Murray Water or something similar.
Yeah, it's mentioned there too, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's not the end result, but they flagged that that's what they're looking at doing, so that it can become a completely separate autonomous body. So there's the report on behalf of Don and myself, and for consideration.
Councillor Forbes, being the other author, do you want to speak to the report? Microphone, please, councillor.
Yeah, I endorse everything that Councillor Soy said, but no, I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to go to that strategic planning workshop. I certainly enjoyed the national, the AGM at Leeton last year. So, and as we've said in that report there, the next report. Annual meeting is in Toowoomba, and certainly endorse that as many people, many councillors should go to it. They're well worthwhile. I believe they were. And a little bit there about the carp. So it's interesting. So that if they do release that virus, the local government authorities will be very significantly involved with the clean-up operation. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Before I'm happy to. I just need a couple of comments. And thank you both for your attendance in the detailed report, because I got a lot out of it reading it in our business paper. To do with this, councillor, 100% support the correspondence going to our state government and through our state and federal member. Then I go to the relevant ministers or wherever they need to go. Instead of a motion, I think, with respect to you, do we just have it as underneath that recommendation as number 2? Is council happy with that? That we won't call for an amendment, that it's just going to be added on. It's in there in that paragraph. We just have it as number 2 and that be done. We all happy with that? Okay. The other thing I need on local level, with Councillor Forbes, with you mentioned about the carp, I said there's a local thing we've been dealing with for a while, and fully support that eradication plan. The other thing I fully support is Chair Brock, with that paragraph with the 4 meetings for this to do with Regional 11 is going to attempt to hold each of these meetings in conjunction with scheduled Brock meetings at the lower cost. Fully support that, and I shared with the Deputy Mayor yesterday.
Sure.
So I'll do everything I can to make that work with the timing and the where we hold those meetings. So I'm sure that'll be accepted. And to me, that's practical, because a lot of those member councils are on Brock anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is border river of councils. So it's got so many similar things there, it's not funny. Yeah. So I fully support that. And I commend you both for the standard. Is there a time frame when the Toowoomba meeting's on of the year?
It's in September. August, September. Yeah.
And I commend any councillor, because this is something that this council has always been very good at. Obviously, cost-setting delegates away to things, but we all should be to go and attend many things. But that's being up there is only 2 hours away, and for a night's accommodation or whatever we need to do, I would fully support anyone to attend that. And I think it's great education for all of us. We've done that before. One year I know we had the state conference at Coffs Harbour and the roads conference at Tamworth, and we split the councillors. Some went to that and some went to that, and it worked really good. And it was the cheapest thing we've done. So that's really good to note that. Questions to the authors to do the report? Any questions? Councillor Bronwyn.
Yeah, I was just wondering, it was interesting, you've got the one attendee commented that for the first time in many years that he'd attended those meetings, he was leaving feeling like a member of a proactive team rather than a group of individuals. There was some discussion down south in the Murray publicly that Murray River Council might actually pull from this organisation. So are they therefore still there and didn't go ahead because they were unhappy with progress? So whether it sounds like things might have changed and improved.
I'm not sure whether Murray Council in particular was there because the name badge said basically what region you were representing. So it was hard to say. We'd have to go back through the minutes, Bronwyn, but the bloke was genuine. He said he used to go away from these meetings frustrated because he felt he'd wasted his time because there was all the different conflicting points of view and nothing was achieved. But all 12, for the first time ever, all 12 regions were represented. And everybody went there with a common goal of trying to solve the problems and put everything own interest aside and get a solution that everybody could work with. And it was really well done. We broke up into different table groups and we weren't just in our own regions. We had to go and mingle with other people, and the old whiteboard and the butcher's paper and everything like that. And it was very well done by the facilitator, who was independent of the whole lot. And we came away with some very workable solutions that'll take it forward.
Questions to the authors to do with the report? The report said, councillors, with the add-on, that report, the recommendation in the report. So everyone's happy with that, and it'll just go in there. Obviously, that correspondence goes to our state government and federal supporting MDA's application for government funding. Are you all happy? Report said, councillors, all happy to receive a note. Against, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 95. It's item RC2/19. It's to do with our Roads and Traffic Committee. Being the chair of that, I'm happy to move that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Varian, I thank you. Happy to take any questions, comment. Councillors, Councillor McNish.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just probably more comments than anything else. Yep. But, during my prolonged periods of time at the council depot getting water,
yes,
I noticed the local delivery trucks all come up Riley Street, 8 to 10 tonners. Right. I noticed a big water truck there one day, filled up and straight up Riley Street. So obviously they're ignoring that signage.
To do with the calming.
Yeah, no heavy traffic in Riley Street. So obviously the delivery trucks are just totally ignoring the signage there. Second one, on the Brooksner Way road train requests, just personally, I got a road train of hay last week. $7 a kilometre for a road train. They broke it up at Gundawindi, and $5.50 for both two prime movers to bring the same load over. That's just my personal experience, but over time there must be an enormous expense, extra expense if a lot less expensive road trains were allowed to come as far as probably Sunnyside or something like that. Then they break them up there. And the mate who brought it over last week, he pulls a road train. He says, no way, it's easy for his prime mover just to come up the Magula Range. There'd be no problems at all. So maybe that's something we should push as a council.
And Councillor, thank you for raising that and being supportive with our newly formed road alliance with Inverell, Guida and Moree. That's one of our big things. Well, first off, to get it reclassified as a highway.
As a highway, yeah.
And the other thing is to allow such things to come up, and it's all there, Councillor, to come up as far. Fully support your comments to come up there and they'd break up at that hard stand there where at the 4 mile turn off there. So all that's there. Good news I can share with everyone, and it's in our paper today, to do with the announcement from the state government, whether it's just glossing due to do with the election, who knows, but with their efforts to take back over the responsibility of local roads and bridges. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. That's from the Conservatives. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I can see it when they say local roads, that adds weight to our argument of getting that road reclassified back as a highway. And I'm not, that's fair dinkum. It's in the paper today. I think they're going to actually announce it tomorrow, but it's already in the paper.
Just one more thing, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, of course you can. Just
on the last one, the business without notice there. Once again, when I was sitting up there filling up my water tank.
Yes, Councillor.
You've got to do something when you
yes, Councillor.
We counted 17 trailer combinations parked in that area, of which 10 were B doubles.
Yep.
So virtually every space was taken. I don't know what we're going to do about it, but just let's leave them there. I don't know, but
No.
it is a concern, I think.
Did you want to speak to that, Andre? It is, Councillor, before Andre, I know and I'll be fairly rounded in what we're saying. With our bypass, Andre's been a great support of, and it's not going to fix that, there's no short-term fix, of working with RMS and our CE Terry is to do with a hard stand on that bypass for such things. Right at the moment, I just said personally, this is what we're trying to encourage them. We have our sale yards with plenty of area there. They could be going out there and parking up. I understand they park up for the weekend to go home, family, whatever. But it is becoming a big issue. We don't want it to be, but I think they're utilising that area with not showing a lot of respect for the people actually owning their blocks. That's my concern. And we know council over, the last few years worked very, very hard to work with council and our staff to sell those blocks in industrial estate. And if I owned one, I'd be taking much offence to someone just parking up and using that area. So I do take that on board, councillor. Did you want to comment on that, Andre, without getting too deep? Okay, all good. Any other questions, councillors, to do with the report? Councillors, what I will be, sorry, Councillor Petrie, Bronwyn Petrie. Apologise. You're on.
Thank you. My query was to do with Cowper Street West.
What number to do with the?
No, it's just, it's not there, this particular one, but it has come up before with Riley Street, etc. So it's a sort of an adjunct to that. People can't take heavier vehicles up Riley Street, as Councillor McNish has spoken about. But I understood delivery trucks were actually exempt if they were delivering something there. I thought there was some exemption according to the CE. Anyway, so therefore people have to go up
Western Street,
Cowper Street, and then around the western boundary road. I did notify council of a near accident in Cowper Street because there was a cement pad that RTA put in years ago, and next to it there was a big dish out, and a lady hit that while I was there at the rural produce store, and nearly lost the thing because she went into this hole and then hit this other bit of concrete that came out. So I asked if that hole could be fixed, and also the condition of that little street.
Have you been there in the last few weeks or days?
Yeah, with the picket fence. Yeah, thank you. I should have just gone and gotten some dirt myself and filled in the hole. Because what happens now...
Council don't.
I know. Instead of fixing the thing as per the email that the CE Terry sent out to have fixed, see if that concrete could actually be removed, and that section needed the seal fixed, instead of which there was a barricade put up. A couple of days later, the barricade was pulled down. An hour later, new barricade went up, and then next thing, the picket fence went across. So now people are going around the picket fence to go up there. There was no need to block the thing off. All that needed to be done was to fix the actual hole, because if you're going there with a load, including with Councillor McNish's load of water or molasses or something, and you go up around Western Boundary and you're actually off Canberra, turning up there, mate. A lot of people do use what is actually Cowper Street. And there has already been complaints put in about overnight people camped on that street, using it as a toilet, etc. And we needed to have, I've previously asked to have the sign put back up that it is Cowper Street and to have the surface fixed. So instead of just barricading that off, we now have the picket fence barricade, which I'd be happy to pull down myself and fill the hole in. But anyway, coming back to that whole situation with Riley Street, you then also have at the other end of Western Boundary, Petrie Street, a 200-metre section unsheeted and full of potholes that we don't even look after. So I don't see why, and particularly with a bypass going in, there's going to be more traffic put in. The street isn't fixed. Why that bit of western end of Petrie Street isn't made properly trafficable. And for the life of me, I actually don't understand why we have one little tiny bit of street in town where nothing over 3 tonne can go, yet a semi-trailer can go up every single other street in this town. So I think that whole section needs looking at.
Councillor, happy to take that forward to put in that business paper in with our minutes of our of our roads and traffic committee meetings, because yes, it is the issue and we do need some clarity. But with that section you're talking about, it's only my personal view, with it being so in that corner and right off the highway, that's something that RMS need to be heavily involved with too. As far as direction about what we can and can't do there.
It's actually our street.
I know it's our street.
Which has got, it was always a street that people can use, and a lot of people traverse, as you can now see by the tracks in the grass around the edge of the picket fence.
Yep.
And it's just, the picket fence needs to go, and that bit of stuff the hole needs to be fixed, or leave the barricade there so people don't drive into the hole. That's fine, but don't close the entire thing off. Eventually, make it safe, and the Cowper Street sign needs to go back up there. But as far as truck parking too, all those trailers, I did previously suggest that one of our unsold blocks of land, perhaps the truckies who are putting all their trailers all over the joint could put them in on one of our unsold pieces of land and pay us a certain fee for doing so much a day or whatever, and get them off those roads. But nothing's sort of progressed with that either.
Well, we're happy to take that forward also, councillor. So, Councillor Peters, you've indicated the question?
The rural business there wants to access that little bit of Cowper Street so they can come straight in off that.
Western Boundary Street, yep.
Yeah, instead of going Western Boundary Street, that little bit that
yep.
Councillor Peters was talking about.
Yep.
They want to access that, they can go straight into their business instead of having to come down and around the side.
Yep.
But they can't get he sent out a council or the RMS, no one will do anything. They said, RMS problem, and RMS said, no, it's council problem. So no one's getting anywhere.
Yeah, but it's both our problems, councillor. And you sit on the Roads and Traffic Committee meeting and always add strength to that, councillor. So we'll take that forward and deal with it. Councillor Sawyer.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just one thing we need to highlight as part of the report on page 102 in general business, number 1, event request. We need to specifically endorse the extension of help provided to minimise the threat of harm that Tenterfield Shire Council will provide the traffic control at our cost.
Yep.
So we just need to have that included.
Councillor, what I will do is put that in the recommendation. So the recommendation read the report from Tenterfield Shire Council Traffic Committee meeting of the 7th of February 2019 be received and noted, and along with those words that you just said, councillor. So we're happy for that, councillors. Do you repeat it so Nolan can put that up there?
We're just putting something shorter.
Along with
endorsement
of the Tenterfield of TSC providing, what's that say? Your own handwriting.
Providing traffic control.
Yep.
Assistance.
Providing traffic control assistance.
At TSC's cost.
And at Tenterfield Shire Council cost. Is that going to work or not, Nolan?
Sorry, I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Right.
It's okay. I'll give you the. If you want to write it out. So.
Well, I've got most of it there, so I think councillors have got the gist of where we're going.
Yep.
And we can work that out later.
Okay.
Yep.
Righto. Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Sawyer, for reminding me and raising that. Okay, councillors, any more questions to do with this report? No, the report's there, councillors. All happy to receive a note? Again, carried. Thank you. Councillors, move on to page 107, your hard copy. It's item NM2/19, notice of motion, unsustainability of woody vegetation. Councillor Very being the author, you happy to move along those lines? Seconder, please. Councillor McNish. Councillor Very, I'll go back to you to present your notice of motion. Councillor Very, you there? Okay. You got 5 minutes, councillor. And your microphone.
Okay, the country is carrying an unprecedented amount of woody vegetation across all tenures of land, which is causing numerous problems to water supply, streams and wetlands. There is visible evidence that woody vegetation is encroaching into wetlands, drying them out, exacerbating the water problems, as wetlands act as giant sponges keeping streams flowing. Early photographs show rivers and streams had very little water vegetation in the river riparian zones. These areas have a forest in the same location today. The effect woody vegetation has on wildlife is less visible than the effect it has on streams. How many people would notice if a bird or a small animal has been noticed for a period? And yet various species are disappearing at an alarming rate. Almost every bird watcher has indicated that less birds are being seen today than just a few years ago. Most of the Australian landscape was woodland. Most bird species are woodland species, and yet we're allowed our woodlands to turn to an almost impenetrable scrub, excluding all those species that depend on woodland for survival. The scrub that we see today does not allow grass to grow, which provides food for grass-eating marsupials and provides seed for seed-eating birds. A lot of the Australian trees are allelopathic, which means virtually no grass grows under these trees. A combination of extreme fires and unsustainable amount of woody vegetation has impacted on our insects. For example, the beetle from the genus Bupress today, once common, have all but disappeared. Wilson's downfall was a hotspot for collecting those beetles, and there was a large collection in the Brisbane Museum from Wilson's downfall. Why we have this scrub today is that we have not managed the vegetation the same way as our Aboriginals did. In fact, legislation and regulations make it difficult to burn at all, and to compound the risk, hazard reduction is seldom carried out on Crown land, and when hazard reduction is carried out, it is not to enhance the habitat for our wildlife, so it is usually at the wrong time of the year, and with fuel loads exceeding 30 tonnes per hectare, we very quickly have an inferno that cook everything. When this type of fire happens, it leaves the soil bare for long periods, so the soil is prone to erosion and open to weed infestation, example lovegrass and bladygrass, which provide no nutrition for animals or birds, etc. When the rain does fall, all the ash washes into the streams, altering the acidity of the water, causing fish kills. These infernos burn so hot it even destroys the humus in the soil, which takes decades to recover. Habitat trees are burnt down, epiphytes are killed, and also take decades to recover. In concluding, all destruction I've outlined has been done in the name of climate change and protecting the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any questions to Councillor Verry to do with the notice of motion? Question, Councillor?
No, can I add some information?
Can you
Speak to it?
push Ken?
Speak for it. I think it's very important, just even speaking to my father-in-law, Ali Peter, he said when he was a young fellow down the Robbie, it was like a gentleman's park with exactly what our lady speaker earlier spoke about, the well-spread tall trees, like distance apart. Now, and where you could easily fatten 400 bullocks down there, now you couldn't run 80 in that particular one particular spot. Much of this country was explored by actual dray, particularly north of Tenterville. Now you'd be able to walk through it. Certainly couldn't squash a koala through it anyway between the trees. Now, if you also refer to, Gary has got a list of reference documents here, but add Bill Gamage's The Biggest Estate on Earth and Vic Jerskis's Bias to Ecology, which was handed to the Premier last year. Also talk about this impact of removal of the low intensity fuel reduction burns that this country has been used to for tens of thousands of years. And what has happened then is when you do get a fire strike, whether it's by natural causes or otherwise, the initial response, if it's at a time when it's going to become an inferno, it is heavily impacted. The soils, even just to the north of town here, talking to one of the farmers there, he's now down burnt to white silica. Lost the topsoil, lost all the soil beta, lost the seeds, lost everything. And unfortunately, a lot of the predilection of government is to exclude fire from the most precious areas. So then what happens is you have a build-up of fuel in the most precious areas, then you get wildfire, and so the most precious areas are then wiped out. If you look at the New South Wales Biodiversity Strategy 2004 Guidelines for Sustainable Fire Management, their recommended fire interval in a wet sclerophyll forest, which is on the eastern side, 25 to 60 years, good luck. Sclerophyll grassy woodlands, which is our western country, 5 to 40 years. dry sclerophyll shrub or grass forest, which is on the top in the east.
Yep.
5 to 50 years, greater than 25 years may be desirable. So, unfortunately, they're adopting this terra nullius view of Australian ecology, completely ignoring the Aboriginal fire history and ecosystems. We've had koalas used to live very close to Tenterfield here, and then they were wiped in one of those earlier fires, and they've been there for generations of that particular. The Dow family had them before it became a national park. Now, some of our national parks are some of the best firefighters on the ground, but unfortunately, they're having to deal with the policy of not just national park but other public land estate here with very high intense fuel loads, which is impacting on not just our flora and fauna, but we're impacting on our landowners, like look at the fencing that Jeff Robinson spoke about today. So it is of extreme concern, and we need to get over this desktop conservation and get a result of what really helps our flora and fauna and our people in the rural areas, and get back to that low intensity burning on a mosaic level, where from 1 acre to 300 at a time, and a whole lot of stuff needs to be addressed and looked at. And I did speak to an Aboriginal fellow at Bulga who said they used to walk from Bulga to Port Macquarie every winter, his ancestors had. And now you couldn't get through it, all because they took fire out.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, to be fair, is there any speakers against this notice motion? Councillor McNish, being the seconder, did you want to speak to the motion?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add that something has to be done about this African lovegrass. I'd like to see it declared a noxious weed. Have we got the power to do that?
Councillor, but with respect, you can bring that back to council and ask for support of that.
I think I will bring it at some stage, not today, but it just crowds everything out. And I noticed the other day, just getting off the topic a wee bit, but when Jimmy Landers' fire was going, I had to move all my cattle out of the back paddock up the front, and I stood there and watched it for quite a while. And you think the fire is nearly out, then you see this great big lot of black smoke come out. That's clearly when the fires hit a patch of African lovegrass. It burns very, very hot, very dark, and it's very, very dangerous. And I've proved on my property you can get rid of it. You've got to work at it, but it can be done. Mike's son, he did a brilliant job on the block next to me at the gap there. So it actually can be done. It's just people have got to perhaps need to be forced to take action with it.
Councillor, happy to deal with that at a later date and be supportive of you bringing that forward. Councillor Petrie, you want to comment on the notice motion?
Yeah, no, just on what John said.
Yeah.
I was down there at the Glennis show, and the DPI, New South Wales, well, the DPI fellows were there, and they were saying that the lovegrass is going to be here, and I don't know what you can do. They said we just got to manage the places better to do it, slash it and feed it out. But I do think it needs getting rid of.
Councillor Peters.
Yeah, just a comment.
It's
basically impossible to get rid of. It's about $1,000 trying to get rid of the damn stuff. About 5 years is about all you can do. I did find out how to get rid of it permanently, though. Sell it to somebody else.
Noted, councillor. Councillors, we will move on. I commend you, Councillor Very, for bringing the notice motion forward. No, I'll come to you in a minute because you have the right of reply. So with the recommendation, and I know that we battled hard at the last conference and got rolled with a similar one. So happy to in any way or form take such a as a motion to either federal or state. No problems at all, and I think that's the least we can do because you've got the full support of the council. Do you want some closing comment on your notice of motion?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to give you all a bit of a history lesson. I came across this gem a while ago. The whole scenery of the tablelands is surprisingly beautiful. Open park-like forests, glades, plains, bold rocks, ravines, mountains had magnificent views from their tops. There now and then streams of perfectly clear water, cascades, waterfalls, and sometimes very large reaches in the streams which might almost be called lakes. On the eastern slopes of the tablelands, there are enormous chasms leading towards the rivers Maclean and Clarence, In short, the whole scenery, combined with the clear, embracing atmosphere, is at all events the most pleasing in the world. One of the most beautiful spots is at the northern end. This is half in New South Wales and half in Queensland. It was here that in 1842, before anyone else had been there, I went with an exploring party of 4. When we got to a distant view of the Darling Downs, which is now part of Queensland, we had nothing left to eat, and I went by myself for about 25 miles towards the Downs. I never enjoyed a ride so much in my life. The pleasure of going alone over this ground, untrodden before, save by wild beasts and the Aborigines, was overwhelming. The excitement was delightful. The better previously was nothing to it. To my mind, there's nothing so charming climate and sceneries combined in this tableland in Australia.
Who wrote that?
That was done by Matthew Henry Marsh, owner of Maryland Station. He wrote that when he went back to England, and it was done in I don't know what year it was, Peter, but he did write that later. But when he went there in 1842, as he said.
Okay, councillor, thanks for your information and for your notice of motion. Councillors, all in favour of the notice of motion? Against? Carried. Move on to our second notice of motion, councillors, on page 114. Sorry.
Consider endorsing this to give support for his research.
So what is this to do with the same issue?
Mr Mayor, that was to support the Mole River people's request for the Myer Foundation for some funding to do that study.
Yeah, I think we can do that with this motion. Would we need a second document with something? Because it's asking us for support that we can give them their support so they can ask for this foundation for money, basically.
Because this is to do with the Mole River Dam, obviously.
No.
Well, what's it got to do with?
It's just a study on the river.
Right.
As to how much, it's all to do with my motion, actually, all to do with what the trees are using. And all he's asking for is a study on it.
Well, I got no issues with it all, councillor. I'm just trying to a way that we can get. So you want to get it to add this to that report, to your notice of motion?
Well, I'm not too sure how we do it.
No, well, that's what I'm asking.
All what we're asking is if we can endorse that as a council, so we can send it on to the whatever it is.
Well, what? I mean, no problems with that. In fairness and respect to has everyone read this? You have.
As Bob said on his talk this morning, he had put it around all councillors.
Well,
and some years ago.
I've never seen it.
Well, you should have read what was on your desk this morning.
Well, this morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has happened is over the years, they've seen the thickening up out there. And at one stage with the flood, Bob had the photos, etc., of the before and after vegetation. So it gave a good difference of density.
Yep.
And to see the difference in water uptake, etc., and where as he's talking about making water, which, as you go further downstream, you get more water should come in, and your streams and rivers should get bigger, but it's not happening because of the dense stuff. So he's applied for money. They've applied for money from the Myer Foundation to do a study, and he's just wanting council endorsement to help support that that application with the Myer Foundation.
Well, with respect to meeting procedure, I think, and I'll ask for some advice here, Andre. I think to table such a thing and fully support it, no problems at all, but it'll need to come in and be a document that's tabled at our next meeting. And then we support it then. It doesn't have to happen today. I'm no way am I putting it back, but I'm just trying to do the right thing as far as our meeting procedure.
They're gone.
Yeah, but once again, happy to support it as a Merrill minute, but not today. I wish and I'm serious, I mean, I wish I'd had this morning, like way before the meeting. Anyway, but that's fully supported. I got no issues with it at all. And it gives a bit more time to, especially me, to have a read of it. And I apologise to the council for that. I'd seen it there, I didn't read it, but and bring it back to our next meeting. And I'm happy to talk to Bob about that, councillor, if you wish. You agree with that, Mr. Acting?
I wouldn't be revisiting your notice of motion.
No. Okay. So I apologise for that, but definitely deal with it in the March meeting. Okay? Righto. Move on to page 114, item NM3/19. So notice the motion from Councillor Bronwyn Petrie to the local environment plan crematorium. Councillor Bronwyn, are you happy, being the author, are you happy to move that along those lines?
Yes, certainly, Mr Mayor.
Hang on. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Sawyer. Councillor Bronwyn Petrie.
As per the all the discussions and submissions we received in relation to the funeral home, those submissions and general discussions clearly identified that over and above the funeral home location, etc., the feeling of people, not just in the immediate vicinity, but across all sorts of parts of the town, that did not feel that a crematorium was a suitable business to be located within town confines. So in order to alleviate those concerns and potential stresses, etc., I'm recommending that we amend our LEP, and in the prohibited use section of our RU5 village zoning, we put crematorium as a prohibited use. Simple as that.
Any questions to our mover of our notice of motion? To the author? Councillor Mike Petrie.
I just got a question about this, changing this, to this, what do you call it, the LEP. To me, how much money will it cost to change this over on the LEP? Does it cost money to do it and a lot of time, or what's the go?
Through Mr Mayor, in terms of the cost, it's very minimal because council has on its in its operational plan a review of the LEP process to happen anyway, which we've already commenced. So this will just slot in with that. It really won't be any additional cost or impost at all.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah, I suppose if you do it now, in another 20 years, they want to put a crematorium in, they'll change. We won't be here, and somebody else will change that LEP. So it won't make any difference.
Any speakers? Councillor Very, yes?
I've been thinking about this, Mayor. I'd like to speak against it because basically,
of course you can.
Yeah, I basically think it's a waste of time because I don't think anybody's going to build a crematorium in Tenterfield in the near future or even in the future. When you got a town like Warwick with 5-6 times our population, probably more, doesn't warrant a crematorium. Stanthorpe with twice our district population doesn't warrant a crematorium. They have about 3 to 4 funerals a week. We average probably 1.5 funerals a week.
We as in Tenterfield.
We as in Tenterfield, yeah. So I think it's really just to make people feel good they're not going to get a crematorium when it's not going to happen at any rate.
No more speakers against. Before I go to you for your closing comment, Councillor Bronwyn Petrie, I do commend you to May, and this is where we all deal with LEP, and you've mentioned this, but number 8 with the project management, it is the intent to review the LEP and subsequent LEP amendment, referred to as housekeeping amendment. That's this?
Yes, this will be included in that, that process.
And everyone can read this, and obviously you all have, will be commenced the first 3 months of 2019 or in the second month, in line with accountability framework and those numbers, and then 1890 operational plan, such item can be included in review with little impost and current resourcing. And I think that's as simple as it is. So it is, and I just wanted to read that because I think that's keeps us all informed where we are. And we have over the years put a lot of work into our LEP, which I think, and with the few amendments we've done. Councillor Bronwyn Petrie for closing remarks.
Have a crystal ball on what's going to happen in the future. So this is the here and now. Within town itself, we don't have any large open space, huge parkland such as the Garden of Remembrance in Toowoomba, where actually the houses are built up to it, where the crematorium is within a large area of the Lawn Cemetery. We do have a cemetery on the edge of town, which is not in RU5, which is RU1, and therefore, perhaps if someone ever wanted to go there, could go on a neighbouring farm or whatever it would happen to be. But by putting it in prohibited within RU5, here, Urbanville, Drake, wherever, Liston, it means that no one could apply to put a crematorium within the boundaries of the RU5 village/town. Yep. And I think not having that crystal ball into the future, we did hear a lot about people's emotions and stress levels and fear, etc. And the discussion on this was not, as I said, confined just to those people who were in the vicinity of that particular funeral home. We also have another one just behind us over here, and there could be another one might want to be built somewhere. What it is saying is that funeral homes aren't prohibited, but that a crematorium would be prohibited from the town boundary, within the town boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. And councillor, sorry, I do apologise. You've been the second. Do you want to speak to the notice motion? Okay, thank you, councillor. Okay, councillors, we'll put the notice motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, we move on to the last item in the open meeting. On page 117, it's to do with, it's item RES 1/19, to do with a council resolution register for February. Can I move in a second to deal with this item, please? Councillor Mike Petrie, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McNish, I thank you. And I hand over to the acting CE.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, you'll see that there's been some comments made in red, like myself, and in most cases where we've gone to the trouble of, I suppose, making changes, we note the changes in red. Look, there's a lot of these resolutions, they have a bit of life to them, and they can only go as fast as this, I suppose, the slowest cog. And parties, so be it. So, look, we've tried to provide a bit of an update on where things are at, so I'm open to questions between Tomei and myself.
Questions to acting CE to do with our resolution register? Councillor Rogan, you've indicated.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you. For Andre, on page 30, Andre, the provision of street sweeping for Tenterfield. I know that resolved that a tender be let back in December. I'm just wondering whether any street sweeping's been going on since then, and whether that's because it's got an A there, as it's still got to be actioned, that's all. So is that tender still ongoing? Or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, look, all I can say to you is I'm very sure that tender or a contract has been let as a consequence of that tender process. There's been a number of locations in here where sort of some of our officers struggle to sort of make some deadlines, particularly with the fires in the last couple of weeks. But I, yes, work has been gotten on with, and I know the manager for works, what he's been involved in, so I can pretty well assure you that we're getting on with the job.
Thank you. Any other questions to our acting CE to do with the resolution register? Councillor Bronwyn Petrie.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering what's happening there with the Mount Lindsay. Is it just that the survey will go out on that rubbish collection? Is that, and can we look at that survey wording beforehand or not? Because there was a problem with the last one.
What page, Councillor?
Page 1.
Yep.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've got no problems sitting down with the council with workshops. So look, if bear in mind how things had a bit of a life of their own last time, certainly happy to run the wording of the survey past you at a workshop, the next workshop. So I know there's been a draft prepared. I had a bit of a look at it myself, and to the extent that I felt it needed some tweaking, I did it then, but I'm pretty sure it's still at draft stage.
Well, that would be appreciated because the actual resolution was for property, the last one had very severe shortfall that next week. And the other thing was page 17. I was just wondering how the investigations are ongoing for lot 1, the lease of, basically it's the sewage farm. So
Apologise, councillor. Can you repeat the
17.
question?
17 up the top.
Yeah, repeat the question. I apologise. I didn't
Okay,
get
these
that.
were the leases. One was for Bendel's, one was for the
Yes.
childcare over here, not the building next to the childcare, and one was for the sewage farm.
Yep.
The Bendel's one is progressing. As May told us earlier, there were some delays in, I think it was to do with operational access to the sewage farm area for our staff or whatever. I was just wondering how that was progressing or whether there simply hasn't been
Thank
time.
you. I apologise, councillor. I just didn't hear what your question was. Did you either? Got nothing? Okay. Right.
Get back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Very.
Andre, with the Mount Lynchy Road at Legume, did we resolve what we're going to do there with the residents? Are they going to meet with Frank Smallman or?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Look, my officer who's looking after the project, Frank Boyce, he is, I'm pretty sure he's up there today, just meeting with a number of residences that weren't quite sure as to how this was going to sort of play out. And fundamentally, the plans haven't changed from the concept. There's just a bit more detail on them because they're detailed design. Now, whether they've got a little bit confused on that or what, not too sure, but he's gone up there to smooth the waters. I mean, the intersection was always going to be tidied up, right? Yep. There was fundamentally, initially, the concept was to have under my predecessor, that they were going to have a T intersection sort of running smack into the store. So if there was a runaway vehicle, you know what would have happened. Yes. So what we chose to look at, and we ran it past the community up there. We went it through the Progress Association. We engaged with them. We bounced it off any number of parties at the concept stage. So really, this is we've moved past that. We've gone through detailed design. Now we're about letting a tender or letting a contract. I suspect, look, the loop will be closed in terms of their understanding, but now's not the time to backtrack and sort of say, let's put the project on hold.
I just think they were concerned they didn't understand the plan.
Yep.
I think with the design, council. Yeah, with the design, what was going to happen, they thought the road was going to shift over onto the footpath, and that was my understanding. And I hadn't got a chance to look at the plan with them to explain to them. I went down to do it, and I lost my wallet a particular day, and I had to get home in a hurry.
It's all good. Any other questions to Acting CEO to do with the resolution register, councillors? No? Okay. The recommendations there, all happy to receive and note. Against, carried. Councillors, 1 o'clock. Do you wish to, that's the end of our open meeting. Do you want to go into confidential or do you want to go and grab a quick bite and then come back? Can I have everyone happy with that? Because lunch is there. I'm sorry, Noel. Can I have a motion to suspend standing orders, please? Councillor Rogan, seconded by Councillor Sawyer. All in favour? Against, carried. Thank you, councillors. How about 1:30 or something like that? 1:45. 3:30 now? Beautiful. Jesus, no, I got an appointment at 3.
I gotta go later.